Hello, first-time coders. In today's video, we would like to see scope of embedded functions, what embedded functions are, and what global scope is. So think of it this way. Let's say this is your main function. All up this alley is your main function. So all these offices are other functions in your code. Okay, so if we go down your main function, we may meet a variable, let's say x. Now, if we see a call like go to fun1, then what do? We have seen fun1 before, so we just go directly to fun1. So we enter into fun1. Remember, we have x still in the back of our minds because we have seen this variable x. Now, we are inside another function. We can see another variable, let's say y. And then as we go along, we may see another function inside fun1. Let's call it efun. Okay, so if we enter this function, we can do some data processing inside the function. Okay, so this is inside fun1. But remember, if you are outside the function, you cannot see all these other functions. So this is how embedded functions work. So let's try our hands on some code and see how this works. Okay, so much like the illustration we have seen earlier, we can assume that all this part here and all this part here is the main part of the code. So the code can easily execute them because there is no any defined keyword there. However, this fun1 will be our outer classroom, and then this define 2 will be the inner classroom, right? So the only way one can see the inner function is after he enters the outer function. So this inner function is called an embedded function. Okay, so because we cannot see it from outside here, that means we cannot call it outside here. Okay, now, so if we have a variable inside the function fun1, what's going to happen? So just like in the drawing, if we have a variable, as we enter inside, then we have a variable right here which says y is equal to 20. Now let's see if we try to print it inside, let's say fun2, y is equal to, and then we print y. Okay, now let's run this code. So if we run the code, what happens? It sees this function, it ignores it, and it just continue. And then when it comes to line 17, it sees fun1. So it remembers, oh, I have seen this function before. Then it goes back and enters the function. Immediately at the door, it sees y equal to 20, much like the way we see in our earlier video in the beginning. So it creates y is in 20 and it puts it in the back of its mind. Then it continues, then it sees this function, it just jumps it, continue with its stuff. It sees this print inside fun1, so it printed inside fun1. it says call fun2, it prints call fun2, and then it sees fun2 here. Then it will just go back and enter that function that it has seen before. So inside this function in line 5, it prints inside fun2, and then when it sees this 20, it prints line 2 where it prints y, and you can see we can see the value of y, even though y is at the outside, but we had the opportunity of seeing it before calling the function. Now if we try creating another variable here, z 30, now if we try calling 30 from here, it's not going to work. Why? Because yeah, it is going to work. Sorry, not here. After the function, after calling the function. So if we try printing 30, if we try printing z, we will get an error. Okay, so you can see we are getting an error here after printing y, but when we come to print z, we are getting an error. You can see that the error said, okay, we called a function fun1, and then inside that fun1 we tried to call a function called fun2, and then inside that function fun2, when we reach line 6, we got an error, and this error is saying free variable z referenced before assignment. So that means this variable, we don't know it, it is referenced before it's even given a value. Now, but if we put the z above just before we call the function, which means our code has seen y, and then it sees the function, it ignores it, it prints all this message, it sees z, and it puts 30 inside z, and then it calls the function. So now let's see if it works. Now if you see, we are able to get all the values. So all variables that are accessed, that are assigned values before calling the function can be accessed. Okay, so if you are from outside, if you see the variable, then you can access it. But this doesn't work the other way around. Now if I put a variable inside this function p equal to 20, and then after I come out and I try saying print fun1, p is equal to, and I tried printing p, let's see what's going to happen. So if we run this, we are getting an error, because immediately, even though we have called this function before we even reach line 16, and we entered this function and we created the variable p, we are doing our stuff in the function. When we come out, since variable p has been created, we should be able to see it here, right? No, because once you come out of a function, all the variables you create in that function will be destroyed. For the same reason, if you try printing y here, you will get an error. If you try saying, okay, print so if you try printing y here, you will get an error. Okay, so let's remove this since we know it's not working. Let's comment it out. Okay, now if we run this, you can see at the end we will get error because y was created inside the function. So that y is only local inside fun1. But because fun1 has swallowed fun2, that means y is accessible inside fun2 because fun1 is still existing. So when you come out of fun2, you all the variables inside fun2 will be dead. Now you can create your variable x equal to 10. So this x is the first variable we create. So if we are inside fun2, fun1, we can say, okay, print fun1 x is equal to, now because x is outside of all the functions, we will be able to access it inside fun1. And if we try accessing it inside fun2, of course we will be able to access it. Why? Because we have seen this variable before we enter all these functions. Okay, so even after calling, if we change this, instead of v, we said x, put x, right? Okay, and then we can even try printing x here. So if we run this, what do we get? You can see fun1 can print x. It can see x. Why? Because before it sees fun1, or before it calls fun1, it has encountered x and it has created the variable x. And x is outside the main. So because x is outside the main, it can be accessed by all functions that were called after that variable is created. This variable is called a global variable. So that's why fun1 can access it. Fun2 can access x and it can access y. Okay, and then and then the main, of course, can access x. Okay, now what if I created a variable with the same name as y? So if I say y is equal to 30 here, what's going to happen? Which of the y's will fun1 print and which of the y's will fun2 print? Okay, so let's run the code. Okay, now if okay, let's try printing y at the end too. In main, let's see which of the y's we will have. So run. Okay, so we can see inside fun1 we are able to print x. Yeah, we know that. And then inside fun1, so inside fun1 we created this variable y, which is equal to 0. Okay, so when we enter inside fun2, we tried to print y. So you can see inside fun2 we were able to print the y, which is 20, which is the y inside fun1. To Python, the y outside will stick to main, and then inside inside fun1, when we create another y, that y will have more preference priority than the one outside. So when fun2 comes, it will only see the y close to it, which is the one inside fun1. But you can see when we come out of all the functions, when we are back inside main, if you remember, immediately we come out of all these functions, all the variables inside these functions will be destroyed. So we will continue using our original value of y. Thank you for watching and see you next time.